My name is Gillian Hobbs. I'm Strategy Director at BRE in the UK, and I'm going to talk a bit about future cities and the work that BRE have been undertaking in the last few years, and some of the perspectives that we've come up with since. So for those of you that don't know about BRE, we stand for a building research establishment. We've been working in the field of the environment since the 1920s. And our mission is to build a better world together. And we do that through a variety of research. We develop products, standards, we carry out training. And BRE is actually owned by a charity called the BRE Trust. So the profits from BRE are gifted to the Trust, and then that is used to carry out research, to support educational programs, and to also produce various publications, typically linked to the built environment. So from 2012 to 2015, we had a thematic program that was looking at future cities research. So we had a large number of collaborations, so over 70 partners. BRE Trust put in over £5 million of funding, and we, because we were partnered with various other people, collectively the project value was in excess of 30 million. So we looked at a whole range of issues connected to how do you make cities work better? You know, what are the core bits of information and research that need to be undertaken, mainly linked to the built environment, but not exclusively so, but can help us get from where we are now to the objective of having better cities, you know, into the future. And so, for example, some of the areas we looked at, you know, we did a lot of work on sensors and monitoring, so you have the data available in the form that you need it in order to make the right decisions. We had a big part of the program was looking at indoor air quality and also outdoor air quality. We just had some news today that basically shows that about 40,000 excess deaths are caused each year in the UK due to air pollution, both indoor and outdoor. So there's obviously a lot of work that needs to be done there. Energy optimization, we're doing work on district heating, but also having systems whereby, for example, the input of renewable energy can be used most effectively with other energy sources. Resource efficiency, I'm going to talk a bit more about the resource efficiency and also the healthy cities work that was done. So what this is showing here is really the fact that we've done a lot of work on sensors and monitoring. So this is real-time sensor and monitoring. And a lot of this is focused on existing buildings, understanding the performance of existing buildings, either to make sure that they're operating the way that they're meant to be within the existing building management energy systems, for example, but then also it can be used for other reasons. So, for example, if you're planning to do refurbishment, you can get a much better understanding in terms of how that building should be refurbished in order to optimise performance in the future. And we're looking at a whole range of issues, so the temperature, the humidity, occupancy, all kinds of, you know, CO2, and all of this information can be used for a variety of reasons so that we have a really much better understanding of how existing buildings are performing, and crucially, how the occupants of those buildings are affected by that building's performance. So you can see the picture in the corner is of moisture leading to mould being created, and obviously those spores are then bad for health. So those sorts of issues are really critical, and you can't, you know, if you're focusing on energy, there's other issues that need to be looked at as well to make sure that the building is performing in the best way it can for the occupants of those buildings. Another project was looking at resource productivity, so looking at the use of resources, so the creation of resources, for example, wasted materials, and then the optimal use of those resources within a city environment or within a local environment. And what we wanted to do was to have a comparison of scenarios, so looking at the existing scenario, but then also looking at alternative scenarios and understanding what would be the benefits or the impact and the benefits. And we looked at that from economic, social and environmental perspective. So the first one I'm showing here is really looking at an evaluation of municipal waste, so domestic waste, but we built up information across multiple waste streams, so municipal, construction, demolition, commercial, industrial, agricultural. So by having that overview, you can get a much better idea in terms of where are you now, and then what would be the benefits of perhaps moving to a system whereby you had greater energy recovery, or you invested in more recycling or more anaerobic digestion facilities, for example. And so this shows you here, we've got the chart in pink is the current situation, the chart in green is the typical regional information you would get for that sort of urban environment. And then the alternative scenario is where we basically said, right, okay, what if you, for example, increased recycling to 75%? What would be the impact of that? And you can see that this is a cost revenue chart. So below the line means that you're making money from the resources available within the city. So you can see that in this particular example, the existing scenario, no, you're losing money, sorry, below the line you're losing money. So in this existing scenario, actually the least cost option is going to move to a situation where you're optimizing the recycling of those resources because you're gaining revenue to offset the cost of managing those materials. Then we looking at the carbon impact of the same scenarios. You can see once again, you know, you're getting significant benefits in terms of avoided carbon impact by moving to a situation where the amount of recycling is increased significantly. And then looking finally at the job creation, once again you can see that the alternative scenario has benefits in terms of job creation. The idea of producing this tool was to have a sort of quite a high-level evaluation so that policymakers, for example, could quickly see that actually by investing in a certain way to operate that city or that urban environment, they could get significant benefits that they're currently lost opportunities. Another example of some work that's been undertaken is to map on a much greater scale, looking at the impact of excess cold and low income. So if you map data layers of excess cold within the area, but then also where the pockets of low income are, then you can automatically see where you need to be targeting your effort in terms of supporting those vulnerable households. And this is work that's being undertaken now, so this information is being used at the moment to make sure that those people that could potentially have significant health impacts because they're suffering from excess cold, because they can't afford to heat their homes, for example, then the community and also the municipality can target their resources to help those particular households and make sure that they don't suffer unduly. And then what we've tried to do through this project is to have more of a holistic, balanced scorecard approach to cities and understanding the healthiness of cities. And in developing this work program, we tried to create scenarios whereby we could actually have indicators that could measure the healthiness of cities. Predominantly linked to the built environment, but not exclusively. And you can see that there's a range of issues there, and there's obviously quite a lot of commonality with these issues and the roadmap that was outlined by Mimu earlier, because these are the areas that affect the resilience and the healthiness of cities. And the idea of this index is that you can get a quick snapshot of an understanding of where a city is performing and where it's underperforming, and then you can have more targeted programs of work to raise the performance of those areas. Another aspect, because of the current thematic work that's going on, is about resilience. So from 2015, for the next 2 years, we'll be looking at resilience, but there was a crossover in terms of looking at the resilience of cities. And this is really looking at a resilience rating. So the report has just been published. You can see the title there. So you'll be able to download it free of charge from BRE Centre for Resilience website. And this is really looking at what's the capacity of a city to respond to events, and then also what's the demand in terms of being able to respond to those events. And ideally you want them to be equal, but inevitably there's going to be a gap across a whole range of issues. So really the resilience rating is trying to understand where the gap is and then put in place measures to reduce that as far as possible. And obviously this will be highly variable and depending on the local context and the drivers and the impacts of those cities. So the 12 city assessment shows the sort of variety of concerns and issues that are affecting a city's ability to have this high resilience rating across the world. And again, it's just a really a high level way of identifying where the priority areas are. And I mean, with this, I basically, you know, we're talking about smart cities, but actually, you know, we want better cities, and I think there's various strands of work that are going on about creating better cities. And although they're shown here as sort of separate, distinct activities, actually there's a lot of overlap between them. And so we have the smart cities where you've got greater integration of the physical, digital, human systems to have effectiveness and efficiency of the services. You've got livable cities, you know, so places where people actually want to live because there's a vibrancy about it, there's a high quality of life, people feel safe, they've got good access, good provision of housing, transport, employment, all the things that people need in order to thrive in a city. Then we have the healthy cities that we've been through. You know, you want people to be healthy within the cities, and there's various constraints that make that quite difficult. You know, traffic being a key one that creates air pollution. And then we have the resilient cities, because the idea of resilience is you don't just have the ability to cope with when things go wrong, so flooding, for example, or a drought situation, or there's an incident, a terrorist incident. It's not just about being able to cope with that, it's also being able to come back stronger and better from when those sorts of things happen. And it's the sort of thing that has to be built in over a long period of time and sustained over a long period of time. So just my final slide is really to make a plea, I suppose, to act smarter, because there's a lot of activity in the whole area of cities. And I actually think there is a shortage of information. There's a lot of information out there, but is it accessible, and is it available in a way that people can use it to make those sort of decisions and to understand how they need to prioritise actions and policies and infrastructure going forward? I think there's still a big knowledge gap, and ideally you want to be able to have this really robust understanding of baseline performance. And from that, you can then prioritise where are the areas that you're going to focus on to make your city a better city, or to put in place a framework to enable all the cities within a particular nation, for example, to be a better, smarter city. And I just thought the whole acronym of SMART was quite relevant here, because if you look at many of the programmes that are going on in terms of smarter, better cities, I think there is, real need to be more specific and more measurable in terms of what's actually going to be done. There does need to be a greater consensus, so that, the people that live in that city, people that work in that city, I think they need to be brought into this whole programme of improvement in a better way, in a more meaningful way. And obviously everything has to be realistic, achievable. There's no point suggesting that you're going to move to a highly integrated, efficient system when you've got a huge amount of existing infrastructure, and you have to make sure that it's possible to make sure that is part of the future progress of the city. Then also being able to do things, and the short, medium, long term, again, is an important aspect of smarter cities. And if you're going to set targets, make sure they can be trackable, make sure you know, is progress being made? If not, have a rethink and carry on. So really just leaving with a briefing paper that was produced, which was Citizen Systems, which sort of talks through some of the things that I've been mentioning today. But it's really about the fact that everything ultimately is integrated, and you need to do things on micro, macro and in-between levels in order to make these things work effectively. So thank you.